Lily Prescott stared at her reflection in the mirror, scrutinizing every line and wrinkle that had appeared over the years. At 48, she was still striking, with her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders and piercing green eyes that seemed to hold secrets. But time had left its mark, and she couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for the youth that had slipped away. She sighed, straightening her blazer and smoothing down her pencil skirt. Another day at the office awaited her, another day of meetings, deadlines, and the constant pressure to prove herself in a world that seemed to value youth above all else. As a senior executive at a prestigious marketing firm, Lily had fought tooth and nail to reach her position, sacrificing personal relationships and even the possibility of a family along the way. Now, standing in her luxurious penthouse apartment with its panoramic view of the city, she felt a hollowness that no amount of professional success could fill. Her marriage to Thomas, once passionate and full of promise, had devolved into a cold, distant arrangement. They lived separate lives under the same roof, their conversations reduced to polite small talk and discussions about household matters. Lily grabbed her designer handbag and headed out the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors. As she rode the elevator down to the parking garage, she steeled herself for another day of putting on a brave face, of being the composed and confident woman everyone expected her to be. Little did she know that this ordinary Tuesday would be the day her life would change forever. The marketing firm was buzzing with activity when Lily arrived. She nodded curtly to her assistant, Jennifer, who handed her a steaming cup of coffee and a stack of files. "The new interns are starting today, Ms. Prescott," Jennifer reminded her. "You're scheduled to give them a welcome speech at 10 a.m. Lily suppressed a groan. Mentoring interns was not her favourite part of the job, but she knew it was important for the company's future. She spent the next hour reviewing the files of the new recruits, mentally preparing herself for the task ahead. At precisely 10 a.m, Lily strode into the conference room, her presence immediately commanding attention. The group of eager young faces turned to her, a mix of excitement and nervousness evident in their eyes. She began her well-rehearsed speech, emphasizing the importance of hard work, creativity, and perseverance in the cutthroat world of marketing. As she scanned the room, her gaze locked with a pair of intense blue eyes. The owner of those eyes was a young man sitting near the back of the room, his posture relaxed yet attentive. Unlike the other interns who were frantically taking notes, he seemed to be drinking in her every word, his eyes never leaving her face. Lily faltered for a moment, caught off guard by the intensity of his gaze. She quickly regained her composure, but throughout the rest of her speech, she found herself inexplicably drawn to those blue eyes. When the presentation was over, the interns filed out of the room, chattering excitedly among themselves. The young man with the blue eyes lingered, approaching Lily as she gathered her materials. "Ms. Prescott," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "I just wanted to thank you for that inspiring speech. I'm Jackson Taylor, and I'm really looking forward to learning from you." Lily looked up, finding herself face to face with the source of her earlier distraction. Up close, Jackson was even more striking. He had a strong jawline, tousled dark hair, and a warm smile that seemed to light up his entire face. Lily guessed he was in his late 20s, and she couldn't help but notice how his well-fitted suit accentuated his athletic build. "Thank you, Mr. Taylor," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm glad you found it helpful. I look forward to seeing what you bring to the team." As Jackson turned to leave, Lily found herself watching him go, her heart racing in a way it hadn't in years. She shook her head, trying to dispel the unexpected feelings that had surfaced. He was an intern, for heaven's sake, and she was old enough to be his. Well, not quite his mother, but certainly not an appropriate romantic interest. Over the next few weeks, Lily found herself increasingly aware of Jackson's presence in the office. He proved to be exceptionally talented, his ideas fresh and innovative. In meetings, she often caught him looking at her with an intensity that both unnerved and excited her. One evening, as Lily was working late in her office, there was a soft knock on the door. She looked up to see Jackson standing in the doorway, a stack of files in his arms. "I'm sorry to disturb you, Ms. Prescott," he said. but I wanted to drop off the research for the Henderson account. I noticed some discrepancies in the data and thought you might want to look it over before tomorrow's presentation. Lily was impressed by his initiative. Thank you, Jackson. That's very thorough of you. Please come in and walk me through what you found. As Jackson explained his findings, Lily couldn't help but be drawn in by his enthusiasm and intelligence. They spent the next hour poring over the data, their heads close together as they leaned over her desk. The air between them seemed to crackle with an unspoken tension. When they finally finished, Lily leaned back in her chair, suddenly aware of how late it had gotten. The office was deserted, and the city lights twinkled beyond her window. "You've done excellent work, Jackson," she said, her voice slightly husky. "This will make a real difference in the presentation tomorrow." Jackson smiled, the warmth of it reaching his eyes. "Thank you, Ms. Prescott. I'm just glad I could help." As he stood to leave, their eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Lily felt a rush of heat course through her body, and she saw a flicker of something, desire, in Jackson's eyes. The spell was broken by the shrill ring of Lily's phone. She answered it quickly, grateful for the distraction. It was Thomas asking when she'd be home. Lily felt a pang of guilt as she assured him she'd be leaving soon. After she hung up, she turned to find Jackson still standing there, an unreadable expression on his face. "You should go home, Jackson," she said softly. "It's late, and we both have a big day tomorrow." He nodded, but hesitated at the door. "Ms. Prescott, Lily," he said, using her first name for the first time. "I just want you to know that I really admire you, not just for your professional achievements, but for who you are as a person." Before Lily could respond, he was gone, leaving her alone with her tumultuous thoughts and the lingering scent of his cologne. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as the team prepared for the Henderson presentation. Lily threw herself into her work, trying to ignore the growing attraction she felt towards Jackson. But every time their eyes met across the conference room, or their hands brushed as they exchanged documents, she felt a jolt of electricity that was becoming harder and harder to deny. The day of the presentation arrived, and thanks to Jackson's keen eye and Lily's expertise, it was a resounding success. The client was thrilled, and the office was buzzing with excitement. As the team gathered for a celebratory drink after work, Lily found herself standing next to Jackson at the bar. "Congratulations, Ms. Prescott," he said, raising his glass to her. "You were brilliant today." Lily smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the glass of wine in her hand. "We make a good team, Jackson. Your contribution was invaluable." As the night wore on, Lily found herself laughing and talking with Jackson, their conversation flowing effortlessly from work to their personal interests. She learned that he was an avid rock climber, that he had a passion for classic literature, and that he had grown up in a small town in Oregon before moving to the city to pursue his dreams. The more they talked, the more Lily felt drawn to him. It wasn't just his physical attractiveness, though that was undeniable, but his intelligence, his wit, and the way he seemed to truly see her, not just as a boss or a successful businesswoman, but as a woman with desires and vulnerabilities. As the party wound down, Lily realized with a start that they were among the last people left. She glanced at her watch, shocked to see how late it had gotten. "I should go," she said, a note of reluctance in her voice. "It's been a long day." Jackson nodded but made no move to leave. "Let me walk you to your car," he offered. "It's late, and the parking garage can be a bit creepy at this hour." Lily knew she should refuse, but found herself nodding in agreement. As they walked to the elevator, she was acutely aware of his presence beside her, the heat radiating from his body in the confined space. When they reached her car, Lily turned to thank him, but the words died on her lips as she saw the look in his eyes. There was no mistaking the desire there, and she knew her own eyes must be reflecting the same. "Lily," Jackson said, his voice low and husky, "I can't stop thinking about you. I know it's complicated, but Before he could finish, Lily closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his in a searing kiss. Jackson responded immediately, his arms wrapping around her waist and pulling her close. The kiss deepened, years of pent-up passion and longing pouring out as they clung to each other in the dimly lit parking garage. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Lily felt a mix of exhilaration and panic. What had she done? This was wrong on so many levels. He was her employee, she was married, the age difference. "I'm sorry," she whispered, stepping back. "This can't happen. We can't." Jackson reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands. "Lily, please, don't run away from this. What I feel for you, it's real. I know it's complicated, but we can figure it out." Lily closed her eyes, torn between the overwhelming desire she felt and the voice of reason screaming in her head. "I need time to think," she said finally. "This is all happening so fast." Jackson nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." As Lily drove home that night, her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She knew that pursuing a relationship with Jackson could jeopardize everything she had worked for, not to mention the potential fallout in her personal life. But for the first time in years, she felt truly alive, desired and understood. The next few weeks were torture for Lily. She tried to maintain a professional distance from Jackson at work, but every stolen glance, every accidental touch sent shivers down her spine. She found herself making excuses to work late, knowing he would often do the same, just for the chance to spend a few moments alone with him. One rainy evening, as thunder rumbled outside her office window, Lily finally admitted to herself that she couldn't fight her feelings any longer. When Jackson knocked on her door, ostensibly to discuss a project, she knew this was the moment of truth. As he entered the office, Lily stood, her heart pounding. "Jackson," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk." He closed the door behind him, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm listening," he said softly. Lily took a deep breath. "What I'm feeling, what we're feeling, because it's dangerous. It could ruin both of our careers, not to mention my marriage. But I can't deny it anymore. When I'm with you, I feel alive in a way I haven't in years." Jackson crossed the room in 2 quick strides, gathering her in his arms. "Lily," he murmured against her hair. "I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why we shouldn't do this. But I'm in love with you. I think I have been since the moment I first saw you." Their lips met in a passionate kiss, all the pent-up longing of the past weeks pouring out. Lily felt as if she were drowning, lost in the sensation of Jackson's hands on her body, his lips on hers. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to let go, to be consumed by desire and passion. What followed was a whirlwind of secret meetings, stolen moments in darkened offices and discreet hotel rooms. Lily felt as if she were living a double life, the composed professional executive by day, and a woman consumed by passion by night. With Jackson, she rediscovered parts of herself she thought had been lost to time. He encouraged her to pursue her long-abandoned love of painting, and they spent weekends exploring hidden corners of the city, laughing and talking for hours. In his arms, Lily felt young again, vibrant and full of possibilities. But as the weeks turned into months, the strain of their secret relationship began to take its toll. Lily was consumed by guilt over her infidelity to Thomas, even though their marriage had been little more than a facade for years. She worried constantly about being discovered, about the potential damage to her reputation and career. Jackson, for his part, struggled with the limitations of their relationship. He wanted to be able to hold Lily's hand in public, to introduce her to his friends as the woman he loved. The secrecy that had once been thrilling now felt suffocating. Their conflicting emotions came to a head one stormy night in October. They had planned to meet at their usual hotel, but as Lily was leaving the office, she received a call from Thomas. His mother had fallen ill, and he needed her to come home immediately to help make arrangements for her care. Torn between her duty to her husband and her desire to be with Jackson, Lily made the difficult decision to go home. She called Jackson to explain, her heart breaking at the disappointment in his voice. "I understand," he said. but Lily could hear the hurt beneath his words. "We'll reschedule." But as the days passed, Lily found herself pulling away. The guilt and stress of her double life were becoming unbearable. She threw herself into work, making excuses to avoid being alone with Jackson. Finally, after weeks of emotional distance, Jackson confronted her in her office late one evening. "What's happening, Lily?" he asked, his voice laced with frustration and pain. "Why are you pushing me away?" Lily sighed, feeling the weight of her decisions pressing down on her. "Jackson, we can't keep doing this. It's not fair to you, it's not fair to Thomas, and it's tearing me apart." "So, that's it?" Jackson's voice cracked with emotion. "You're just going to throw away everything we have?" Lily felt tears welling up in her eyes. "What we have is beautiful, Jackson, but it's not real. We're living in a fantasy, and sooner or later, reality was bound to catch up with us." Jackson's face crumpled, and Lily's heart broke at the sight. She wanted nothing more than to take him in her arms, to tell him that everything would be all right. But she knew that would only prolong the inevitable. "I love you, Lily," Jackson said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought that would be enough." As he turned to leave, Lily called out to him. "Jackson, wait." He paused at the door, not turning around. "I love you too," she said softly. "But sometimes love isn't enough to overcome the obstacles in its path." After Jackson left, Lily collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face. She knew she had made the right decision, but it felt like she had ripped out a part of her soul. The following weeks were a blur of pain and regret. Lily threw herself into her work with renewed vigour, trying to fill the void left by Jackson's absence. She made a conscious effort to reconnect with Thomas, suggesting they attend couples therapy to work on their issues. Jackson, for his part, requested a transfer to the company's West Coast office. Lily approved it without hesitation, knowing it was for the best, even as her heart shattered all over again. As the months passed, Lily slowly began to heal. The pain of losing Jackson never fully disappeared, but it became a dull ache rather than the sharp agony it had once been. She found solace in her rekindled passion for painting, filling canvases with vibrant colours and emotions she couldn't express in words. Her relationship with Thomas improved gradually. While they never recaptured the passion of their early years, they developed a deeper understanding and companionship. Lily realised that there were many different kinds of love, each valuable in its own way. 1 year after her affair with Jackson ended, Lily received a small package in the mail. Inside was a beautifully bound sketchbook filled with drawings of her. Laughing deep in thought, her face illuminated by candlelight,